Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Police say that at least 30 people are now confirmed to have died in the fire that engulfed Grenfell Tower behind me here in West London. The BBC understands that the total number of people who are dead or missing so far is around 70. There's growing anger at the way the authorities have dealt with the aftermath of the fire. Around 500 protesters have stormed Kensington Town Hall. In the last half hour, the Prime Minister has offered a £5 million relief fund for those affected by the fire. The Queen and Prince William have been visiting a relief centre which has been helping victims. Our first report tonight on the latest on the Tower block fire is from our correspondent, Jeremy Cook.
A crowd storms Kensington Town Hall, demanding action, demanding justice, and demanding answers. How could this tragedy have happened on this scale, in this city, in 2017?
And what I'll tell you is we need to be heard. We need to be heard. We all have things to say. Yes, we are in pain. We have been trodden on by people who say they defend us.
The whole procedure is chaos. We are sent from hospital to hospital to shelters. Why is there not a community health for family members? Why? Why do we have to go out there and look actively for them and then be told misled information, be told there's a safe checklist and they're possibly alive, making us call family members telling us they're alive, and there's someone else telling us, actually, no, sorry, that's not made by them themselves, it's made by someone on their behalf. Words of mouth. We live in a modern world. Why is it carried out like this for? It doesn't make sense.
But today, again, in the shadow of Grenfell Tower, a different kind of response.
Sorry.
It is an overwhelming community tragedy with an overwhelming community response.
We get all the missing people up on the same window.
A continuing grassroots mobilisation are doing all they can. And visited today by royalty. A time to reflect and to thank.
You guys did a brilliant job in unprecedented circumstances.
But the Queen and Prince William left in no doubt of the agony and the grief here. Royal protocol meets raw emotion.
Williams, hurry! Come on here! Please! Where are the children? Where are the children? Where are the mothers? Where are the children?
And when the Queen turning up, everyone came now, yeah? Go to the media, show the Queen you are nice. Sorry to the policeman, sorry to the fireman, but you're not doing the right job.
Could you tell us who they are in the pictures? Sir, tell us?
No, my daughters, families, friends, okay? Those not because not my children, my family's friends. You're not necessary to be my children. All of them, they died in there, my families and friends and children.
The rescue crews are still making their way through the building. It's hard to imagine a more challenging task. Dangerous and slow work. It is why the official death toll remains so much lower than what the people here expect and what they fear.
The building itself is in a very hazardous state. It is going to take a period of time for our specialists, both from the police and the London Fire Brigade, to fully search that building to make sure we locate and recover everybody that has sadly perished in that fire. We will be doing that as swiftly as we can, absolutely. I completely understand the need for those that have lost loved ones, that as quick as we can, we're able to confirm that.
With all of that comes frustration and the sense among many here that more help is needed at the official level.
There's a woman on a train, she goes past the train and she sees body bags, loads and loads of body bags. Why are they lying?
In the back, yeah.
Okay, even if you can't identify them, don't lie. Say, we have this many bodies that are unidentified. Because there's people out here that are looking for their family and their friends.
We haven't met anyone from the council that's actually come here and speak to anyone. Nobody. Our MP came here on Wednesday for about 5 minutes. but we haven't seen anyone who's actually come and even come in there and speak to any of the local people who have been infected, which is really annoying.
So you need some engagement.
Yeah, you know, we haven't got any of that at all. All we have is just people coming in to volunteer, wanted to do this, wanted to do that, to drop things off. But we haven't seen anyone in the authority who, you know, we can give some other responsibility to.
What do you think it is?
They're not bringing out the truth, man. They need to talk the truth and get real, innit? Theresa May steps down there and don't come and see none of us. She don't walk around here. She don't do nothing. When it's the Manchester thing and everything else, she was all about the place. You know, no truth. They've always been wanting to do something like this to Ladbroke Grove. Do you know what I mean? And now that something's done, it would be nice if they'd done something properly to help us.
The investigations and the inquests and the inquiries will take months, perhaps years to complete. But the people here believe they already have a fundamental understanding of this tragedy, that the fire swept through the building at breathtaking pace, and that so many people from this neighbourhood have lost their lives. Away from the crowds, it's now 3 days on. The fire is out and London rumbles on. Grenfell Tower, 127 homes, stands monument now to the lives, to the families who have been lost. Jeremy Cook, BBC News, North Kensington.
Well, our correspondent Dan Johnson is at Kensington Town Hall, where the protest is still going on. Dan, we saw some very angry people there. What more can you tell us about what's going on?
Indeed, yes, there's no mistaking the level of frustration here. There was a plea at the start of this protest for things to be calm and orderly, and in the main they have been. This has certainly been a non-violent protest, but there was a point where things boiled over and some people rushed towards the door of the council offices, and some managed to get inside to take their message directly to council officials. The police have had to come and block the door to push people back, and things are calm now, but still people are gathering, sharing their message. They feel let down by their council. They feel there hasn't been enough information and there hasn't been enough action either. They say that the money that has been made available simply isn't enough and isn't getting through to the right people who need it. They say there are people who are homeless without anywhere to sleep, without any clothes to wear. They want temporary accommodation made available immediately for all the survivors of this fire, and they want reassurance that everyone who's been made homeless will be rehomed quickly and within this borough. But I think it is obvious that the horror of this disaster has shone a spotlight on some other broader issues around inequality and dissatisfaction with the way things are run here. People feel that their council just isn't accountable and hasn't been working to serve them. They're determined to get that message through, and some people are intent on using this disaster as an opportunity to reorder the way of life here.
Dan Johnson outside Kensington Town Hall with the latest. Thank you very much. Well, politicians from all parties, the Prime Minister in particular, are facing a barrage of criticism from local people over how they've responded to the fire. Many feel their voices have been ignored for years. Today, the local government secretary, Sajid Javid, promised that whatever recommendations are made by safety experts, including rehousing people living in other tower blocks, they will be done. Our deputy political editor, John Pienaar, reports on the political questions that need to be answered in the light of this tragedy.
Sorrows turn to rage. This tragedy's become a cause.
When do we want the answers? We want them now!
Today, protesters demanded help, answers and justice. Clothing for those who'd lost everything poured in. Too much to handle, too much to use. All of it piling pressure on the government to learn the lessons of Grenfell Tower and stop it happening again. Theresa May was back, this time, unlike last time, seeing victims in hospital. While ministers promised to do everything, anything they could to identify buildings at risk and make them and the people inside safe.
We will do whatever it takes. We will take the expert advice, do whatever it takes to make those buildings safe or make those people safe. Whatever it takes. We have to be led by the experts, but there can be no shortcuts to this.
But making this kind of loss, this kind of horror, the last we'll see, means thousands of blocks must be inspected, millions of pounds in work, and who knows how many moved to safety. Here they're busy helping now, demanding action from politicians about as quickly. So within the space of a few hours, Theresa May and 2 cabinet ministers have been in the area just a day after the Prime Minister was criticised for failing to meet and hear directly from people caught up in the tragedy. Whether or not they're trying to make for lost time, to demonstrate their concern, they are under pressure. People here want answers and they want action. Are you blaming politicians, or is it just their job to do something about it now, or both?
I think there's more than politicians to be blamed. I think architectures, all of it. I think they're all involved. They're all to blame, and they're all going to keep blaming each other there. But someone has got to answer for it.
Thanks to the community, we're managing. There is no single politician or civilian who came forward to take responsibility.
They should try and stop people from coming into London and, you know, profiteering from building huge complexes, £1 million properties, and ghettoising the people who don't have that sort of money into properties that are not maintained and not looked after.
The London Mayor's adding to the demands.
It's really important we're not left waiting for 2, 3, 4 years before we get answers. We need answers now. What I'm asking is for an interim response to the inquiry this summer.
Enough is enough.
One minister made a surprise visit. The reaction was predictable.
Yeah. Because of people saving money, people are dying.
Yeah, well, you know, that's why it will be so important to get to the bottom of what happened.
That's going to take too long, though, isn't it, Miss Leadsom? It's just going to take far too long for people here. We're on the verge of some serious anger in the streets.
Yeah. No, I absolutely understand it.
More fury tonight outside a church being visited by the Prime Minister. The anger won't fade quickly. A weakened Prime Minister is struggling to keep pace with a new crisis. John Pinar, BBC News.
Well, as we heard at the top of the programme, dozens of people are still missing. Many families are searching for information, trying to find out what happened to their loved ones. More heartbreaking stories are emerging about last phone calls and messages from people who were trapped in their homes. Sarah Campbell reports now on the victims and those still missing, and you may find some of it distressing.
With each day, the number of people dead or feared to have died increases. The scale of the loss of life is almost impossible to comprehend. Confirmed today, Khadija Say, who was 24 years old. She was a promising young artist. The MP, David Lammy, a friend, tweeted, "I mourn the tragic loss of a wonderful young woman." Former colleagues feared the worst after reading her final tweets about thick smoke in the 20th floor flat she shared with her mother.
Khadija was the whole package. She had everything going for her. She had a beautiful soul. She was a kind person. She was always volunteering, always looking out for other people, buddying younger people, bringing in people very passionate about her own community, and hugely talented, creative artist. Her photography and her art speak for themselves. She really had a massive future ahead of her, and we hugely missed by all of us.
2 other victims have been named so far. 5-year-old Isaac Shewo, described by his mother as a beautiful boy, and Mohammed Al-Hajali, a 23-year-old Syrian refugee.
And once I asked him, why you are studying civil engineering? And he laughed and said, because I want to come back, I want to go back to Syria when the war is over and help rebuild the country. He said they will need us. This is what kind of people he was.
This wall has become a focal point for the community, a place for people to leave tributes, to write down messages and express their thoughts and feelings about what happened. It's also a place where even today family members and friends have posted pictures of those they desperately want to hear from.
What do I expect? Well, I'm hoping basically they're in the hospital, you know, even if it means they're unconscious, but they're in hospital. That's what I'm hoping.
I feel angry, I feel sad, I feel everything. Because I lost my friend inside, but I can't do anything. She's died, but I can't help her. I saw her same day before she died. The morning and afternoon, but she's died, but I just not watching. No one helped her.
The wait for news goes on for family after family. Mo Khalil spent much of today putting up pictures of his uncle Hesham Rahman, who lived on the 20th floor.
We don't know. It's quite like a really kind of empty sort of feeling that we've all got. We don't really know anything. We've got no answers. We're all just looking at each other, just kind of hoping that we find them, really, or find something.
It will take time, but there will be many more names to add to the list of the dead. Many more families left in grief. Sarah Campbell, BBC News.
Well, in the last half hour, the Prime Minister, Theresa May, has offered a £5 million relief fund for those affected by the fire. This afternoon, she visited the area to talk to residents, and a short while ago, she spoke to my colleague Emily Maitlis and said the government was doing everything it could to help those affected by the tragedy.
We are committed to ensuring that people are rehoused as far as possible within the borough or in neighbouring boroughs. Some people may actually want to go to another part of London where perhaps they have a greater support network, where they have friends and relatives. We are ensuring that within 3 weeks people will be rehoused so they have a home to go to.
I ask you again, do you accept, though, that you misread the public mood, the level of anger? You didn't go and meet residents and they really resented that?
This was a terrible tragedy that took place. People have lost their lives and others have lost everything, all their possessions, their home and everything. What we are doing is putting in place the support that will help them. But it is a terrible tragedy. I have heard horrifying stories from the fire brigade, from the police and from the victims themselves who were in that tower, but also from other local residents, some of whom of course have not been able to go back to their homes either.
And
what I'm now absolutely focused on is ensuring that we get that support on the ground. As I say, government is making money available. We're ensuring that we're going to get to the bottom of what's happened. We will ensure that people are rehoused, but we need to make sure that that actually happens.
Theresa May talking to my colleague Emily Maitlis there. Let's talk to our Deputy Political Editor John Pienaar, who's at Westminster. John, Theresa May has come in for considerable personal criticism about her response to this fire. 72 hours after it started, she came down today to meet residents. She's announced this relief fund. Is it enough to fend off her critics?
Well, Fiona, the Prime Minister is having to show some of the empathy and the agility that some of her critics believe was lacking when she made her first visit to the area, that brief visit. I was in the area today. I saw the truly inspiring sight of people of all communities, all social classes coming together, offering clothing by way of donations, too much for the volunteers on the ground to deal with. And just about everyone I spoke to spoke of the lack of leadership at local and national level. Now, we've heard from Theresa May today. She made the announcements you referred to there. She's under pressure. She'll need to see that this coming public inquiry is set up quickly, that it makes effective recommendations, that they are acted upon quickly. The roots of this go beyond the last two Tory administrations, back through the time of the last Labour administration. But inevitably, the buck stops on the desk of the serving Prime Minister. And this is a defining test of Theresa May's authority, weakened as it is since the election. And that test has come far more quickly than Theresa May could possibly have imagined.
John at Westminster, thank you. "24 people remain in hospital tonight. 12 of them are critically ill. For hospital staff, it was an incredibly busy time treating the victims of burns and smoke inhalation. Our health editor Hugh Pym has been talking to 2 members of NHS staff who treated victims through Wednesday night.
King's College Hospital, one of London's major trauma centres, its staff on the front line of the NHS response to the traumatic and often horrific aftermath of the Westminster and London Bridge attacks, and this week, Grenfell Tower.
Heart and circulation.
Dr. Tom Best arrived in the early hours of Wednesday. The urgent task was to clear the airwaves of victims of smoke inhalation and then the particles which had got into their lungs.
We found lots and lots of soot that was lining the lungs. And some of that was obviously quite hot when it got into the lungs, and so there were some burns underneath the soot, and we washed out as much of that soot as we possibly could to remove it.
The emotion at the end of a punishing week is raw.
It's sorry. I think, on a professional level, I feel immensely proud. But there is something so enormous about what's happened that it's impossible to comprehend at the moment.
For most staff at the hospital, there was a need to care for families in distress, as well as the patients themselves.
How did you feel then at the end of your shift?
It's
really tough. I think when you're working, you just power through a little bit, and it's only when you actually step back and you finish at the end of the day that you realise quite how upsetting it can be, dealing with some of these things. So, yeah, it was really, really tough.
So the NHS in London has had to cope with 2 major incidents in the space of less than a fortnight. And just to illustrate the ongoing challenge, they're still treating patients here from the London Bridge attack, as well as those who came in during the early hours of Wednesday morning. And many staff have been involved in the emergency response both times. Hugh Pym, BBC News at King's College Hospital.
Well, the police have now confirmed that at the very least 30 people died in the Grenfell Tower fire. The numbers are rising though. So too are the social and political tensions brought into the open by Tuesday's tragedy. And on a day when the Queen and Prince William toured a relief centre in North Kensington and Theresa May was confronted on the streets by angry residents, there have been protests inside and outside Kensington and Chelsea Town Hall. In our first report tonight, our social affairs editor Jackie Long looks at the frustrations of local people and the resentment of a community that feels it has been ignored for too long.
As the days pass, the anger grows. It is raw and it is visceral. This afternoon, family and friends of the victims and others from across London took that anger to the local council, storming the town hall. Outside, as organisers urged calm, members of the local Moroccan community, who have many relatives still missing, begged to be heard.
Somebody has to know
someone have to take the blame. I couldn't say the government, I couldn't say the council, I couldn't say Timo. Somebody have to take the blame of that. If it's 10 million spent, it's just 2 years ago.
And how has the community itself coped?
The community is a low, they don't sleep.
Earlier, a more subdued response as the Queen and Duke of Cambridge visited one of the makeshift relief centres set up in a local sports centre. They met residents and volunteers. The Queen praised the bravery of firefighters, with a desperate father in the crowd holding a picture of his children.
Come here.
The Duke promised, "I will come back."
I'll be back. I'll come back. Come back.
Police say the official death toll now stands at more than 30. Hasham al-Hajali's brother Mohammed was one of the first to be identified. Hasham raced to the flats after he heard about the fire on social media. He spent almost an hour on the phone to his brother, begging him to try to escape.
He was crying a lot. He said, "Hashim, put me through to my mum. I want to speak to my mum, Hashim." I said, okay, don't worry, you speak to my mum. He said, "Tell her to forgive me, please." I said, okay, and then he said, "Do you forgive me yourself? Do you forgive me, Hashim?" I said, "What do I need to forgive you for? You haven't done anything." He said, "No, please forgive me."
Hasham says Mohammed and his other brother Omar, who lived with him, were told 3 times by the fire brigade to stay in the flat. Omar eventually got out. Mohammed told him he couldn't get down the stairs because of the bodies of others.
I've never seen Mohammed crying before in my life. We've lived together since we were born, but I've never seen him crying or heard him crying. So when I heard him crying and saying, "I want to talk to my mom," I knew there's something different now. There's something happening. Something wrong will happen. But I didn't want to believe it. I was like, no, he will come out and then he can speak to my mom.
But Mohammed eventually stopped speaking. Hasham says his mother, who sent her 3 boys to escape the war in Syria, is left to grieve the death of her son on a British housing estate. And how are your mum and dad coping?
My mom and dad, they are in a very bad situation. They just want to see Mohammed. My mom said he's left us for 4 years and now he just died without saying goodbye. Everything has gone. Why do we have to do all this if Mohammed has died and we will die here or in Syria? Why did we have to come and study and do all this? It's nothing, you know. if you don't have your family next to you, everything you do is nothing. Everything is futile.
The Prime Minister today announced a £5 million emergency relief fund, but it wasn't enough to assuage the anger of some. Criticised yesterday for visiting but failing to talk to residents, she came back today and was met with this. Also today, in a written statement, the Prime Minister assured residents that the government is there for all the victims of this tragedy. It would seem not everyone is yet convinced.
Well, a few minutes ago, the Prime Minister gave a single pooled media interview carried out by a BBC presenter. She was asked about the package of measures she has announced to help those directly affected by the Grenfell Tower fire.
This is an absolutely awful fire that took place. People have lost their lives. People have had their homes destroyed. They have fled for their lives with absolutely nothing. That's why
you misread the public mood on this one. You misread the anger that people feel about this. They shouted coward at you this afternoon when you left St Clement's.
What I have done since this incident took place is, first of all, yesterday, ensure that the public services had the support that they needed in order to be able to do the job they were doing in the immediate aftermath of this.
The reason, Prime Minister, this is Friday evening. They needed those things in place on Wednesday. There were people we spoke to who were housed for one night, didn't know where they'd spend the next night, had no money to spend on food, and were not told anything by anyone. No one was in charge.
What I have done today is ensured that we are, as a government, putting that funding in place for people in the area. This has been an absolutely terrifying experience.
When did they get that funding? When are they told where they're going to be housed?
It has been a terrifying experience for people. This is why, when I've heard stories, I heard stories yesterday from the emergency services about the issues around the fire. That's why I came straight back to Downing Street and I ordered a public inquiry. And we'll make sure that takes place as soon as possible to get to the bottom of this. But this is not just about finding out what happened. This is not just about finding out who was responsible for what happened. It's about ensuring that support is there, here and now.
Well, a short while ago, Jackie Long spoke to the Labour MP David Lammy. He said that now he fears that 24-year-old Khadija Say, who was a friend of his and his family, died in the fire. Mr Lammy's wife has spoken to Miss Say on social media as smoke engulfed her flat on the 20th floor of the Grenfell Tower.
David Lammy, this enormous tragedy raises so many questions. For you, what is this about?
For me, this is about the welfare state. For your middle-class viewers, this is about whether the welfare state is just schools and hospitals, or whether it's about having a safety net. And I get quite emotional as I say that. We need to live in a society where we care for the poorest and the vulnerable. And that means housing. It means somewhere decent to live. It was a noble idea that we built. And it's falling apart around our eyes. That's what it's about. And if it's taken this tragedy to bring that reality home to people who are lucky enough to live in very different circumstances, then thank God. It's about the welfare state. Do we believe in a safety net or not?
Because what do you think this says about the state of some housing, some state-run, council-owned housing?
You can't contract out everything to the private sector. The private sector do some wonderful things, but they have a for-profit motives. They cut corners. If you haven't got the officers to check on the enforcement of buildings, don't expect it to be done. You know, are there fire extinguishers? I knock on doors all the time. All MPs did. We've all been up to those tower blocks. They exist right across the country. Where are the fire extinguishers on every corridor? Where are the hoses? Are the fire doors really working? Where are the sprinklers? If you want to build these buildings, then let them at least be as good as the luxury penthouse buildings that are also being built. But these buildings aren't, is the question. So you either demolish them and house people in a different way, or you absolutely refurbish them to the best of quality that we can do.
Do you think this says anything about the value that is placed on the lives of people who cannot afford to buy their own property to live in some of the nicer bits of Britain?
This is a tale of two cities. This is what Dickens was writing about in the century before the last, and it's still here in 2017. It's the face of the poorest and the most vulnerable. My friend who lost her life was a talented artist, but she was a young black woman making her way in this country, and she absolutely had no power or locus or agency. She had not yet achieved that in her life. She'd done amazing things, gone to university, the best in her life, but she's died with her mother on the 22nd floor of a building. And it breaks my heart that that's happening in Britain in 2017. It breaks my heart.
David Lammy talking to Jackie. Well, I'm joined now by Eve Allison, a local Conservative councillor, and Mustafa Al-Mansour, who led the protest outside Kensington Town Hall today, and whose wife's best friend is missing. Mustafa, what do you make of Theresa May's behaviour today?
She's totally not in touch with the public. The people wanted to see a face, the people wanted representatives to come and see and talk to them. Theresa May came and left without visiting the families and relatives of the people affected. So people are frustrated and angered.
Why were you protesting at the council today?
Because since the tragedy, the general public have come together and they have raised more than £5 million. They've put together all the resources to help the victims of the tragedy, and nothing to date has been committed by the local council nor the central government. So we got together outside the local council at the town hall to demand answers from the council, and they still have not come back with satisfactory answers.
Eve Allison, she is the Prime Minister, she's your party leader.
Indeed, yes.
She met some people in that church today, some local residents, I'm not sure who. What do you make of the leadership, or lack of it, that we're seeing at the moment?
Well, all I'd like to say is I stand here before you all today. I have no tiara. I didn't arrive here in an armoured car. I do not have bodyguards. I've been out since this tragedy started, walking amongst people. People didn't realise that I was a local councillor. Just talking to people, just saying to them what they ought to do, take donations to shelters and to receptive centres. Today I met some people in Notting Hill Gate, and they asked me what to do with their donations. I said, as far as I'm concerned now, donations are not going to do any good anymore. You need to take it to the town hall, and you need to make your voice heard, because that's the only way. But I don't think that we should be openly having fisticuffs with the police. But emotions are raw. People are angry, and the mood is changing, because the local people on the ground, from what I've seen, they've had to galvanise themselves. No one galvanised
Precisely.
them.
There is a vacuum here, isn't there? People are organising themselves on the streets in terms of the donations. There is very little visible presence of authority. And people are going around from place to place with pictures of their loved ones, saying, I have no information.
There's no, well, from what I could see, it appears to be that there's no proper coordinated contingency. That's how I would say it, on the actual ground. And that's adding to people's frustrations. It's making people become more and more fractious, if I can dare say that word. I know what it feels like for a lot of these people to have gone through what they've actually gone through. I came to Kensington and Chelsea in 1990 with 2 children and a little bag. I had no home. I didn't have anything, but I wasn't escaping from a fire, but I can resonate and feel how these people feel.
Are you fearful, though, of what could happen in the coming days? I mean, there were angry scuffles with the police after Theresa May was driven away today.
Well,
it could have got a lot worse quite quickly.
What I would have liked to, what I personally would have liked to have seen is a more hands-on approach, more that, you know, that the average man and woman here can actually relate to our Prime Minister and feel that something is being done.
Mustafa, I mean, time and again people have said to me that they feel completely let down. There is something very fundamental that we're seeing here, which is people feel the system doesn't speak to them, doesn't come to their aid at a time for crisis.
Well, look, ordinary people behaved in extraordinary ways over the last 3 days. They have not seen anyone from the authorities or the local council come down and talk to them. They have not seen any action being taken. The people who are on the streets are general members of the public and some celebrities who have come out to show their support and solidarity in galvanizing people and donations to help.
What do you make of the £5 million?
It's come a bit too late when people have actually raised £5 million already to date. So for her to commit £5 million, which probably will be a drop in the ocean, to understand exactly what's gone on in this tragedy.
When you look up at that shocking sight that towers over the whole of West London now, you can see it from everywhere. What are you thinking?
It shows the tragic contrast between the poor in this borough and the rich. And we are standing next to another one of these towers here, Whitstable House, and I've just been around there, and again there's only one fire exit, and God forbid if something is to happen to this building, it might have a similar ending.
May I just qualify that point and say, last summer, 2016, August, I was doing a lot of work with the people in Frinstead House. That's another block not far from here. It's opposite Latimer Tube Station. And on the whole, to my shame and to my disgrace, they just had one lift for 80 people.
And this is a story that I'm sure is being echoed not just across the capital, but across the country, in the 4,000 tower blocks that are across this country. Thank you both very much indeed for joining us. I'm really sorry, we've got to move on, but thank you very much indeed. Well, as we reported earlier, a group of protesters forced their way into Kensington Town Hall with a list of demands. Many are now on their way back to the area around Grenfell Tower here, and our reporter Paul McNamara has been with them and is here now. Well, what happened?
Well, I mean, as you said, it started off as a protest, it's turned into a march, and it's a march that's been met by lots of goodwill as they've walked through the streets of Notting Hill. Lots of trucks that have been beeping their horn for them. There's a lot of support for these people all along the streets. Ultimately, this is the crowd that is as angry as they are upset. At one point, they managed to get into the town hall, and it was a bit of a skirmish, but it was by and large a peaceful protest. We're forced outside, and on the outside, they just wanted to be heard. I spoke to one woman, and she said, I asked, why are you here? Why is it so important for you to be here? She said, well, first of all, I've got nowhere else to go now. My home has gone up in flames. But second of all, if I'm not heard now, when will my voice be heard? When will these people actually listen to us? We spoke to a couple of other people who were inside, and this is what they had to tell us.
The TMO and the council have treated the entire of North Kensington as a joke for years and years and years. They neglect the needs of the people simply because they're poor and because they can.
Protest is about the people having a voice. Their voice has been removed from them by the council, by the media, by several sources.
Do you feel like this council has listened to you in the past few years?
No. We have been disenfranchised. We have been treated as though, why are you here? This is an area that was a slum, Notting Hill. No one wanted to live here. Now the cultural, and the thing is, the cultural diversity, everything about this area has made people want to be part of what we have. And now they're like, oh, that's lovely, but can you move now?
Well, we'll have more from North Kensington later in the programme, but now over to Kathy, who's in Westminster.
Thanks, Krish. Well, the tragedy has become increasingly political as angry residents search for those to blame. There was a lot of criticism of the Prime Minister yesterday for not visiting victims, and she faced angry shouts as she left the area next to Grenfell Tower today. Here's our political correspondent, Michael Crick.
Tonight's £5 million government aid package was preceded by visits from several ministers.
Totally devastated on behalf of local residents. It's just the worst thing that could have happened, and I've spoken to a lot of residents and I want to go and make some progress and try and help them in any way I can. Thank you.
And Andrea Leadsom, the new leader of the Commons, was filmed talking to angry residents, unlike Theresa May these past 2 days.
At least she could have met the victims, at least. Corbyn's a good man, and he met them. He came and met the people. He didn't come with a bunch of police, and no one saw her. What would you say to that?
You know, as I say, I've come here today because I wanted to meet residents. I wanted to share the absolute sorrow and horror of everyone in the House of Commons.
Why has Sadiq Khan, Corbyn have come down here, not with all the stunt of bodyguards and police? They've come down here and spoke to people and actually down to level. Why is Theresa May coming here with a load of police, walking around, not meeting no one, not meeting a family? Who is now at the Westway Centre? There's victims there.
Shortly after that, today, Mrs May did visit Westminster Hospital. A trip she didn't make yesterday, I'm told, because the hospital said patients weren't ready for it. And today, cameras weren't invited to follow her inside to meet injured survivors because Number 10 say they thought patients wouldn't want to be on camera. And it was then left to the Communities Secretary to reassure residents of tower blocks elsewhere.
There is no action that should be ruled out. There are people, let's remember, there are people in these similar towers today that will be very worried about themselves, they'll be worried about their family, their children. I totally understand that, the government understands that, and we need to have these inspections quickly, as soon as it's informed by the first report that comes out by the fire inspectors, but act very quickly, and there should be no limit to what we can do to give them the reassurance they deserve and they need.
Meanwhile, the Tories still have no agreement with the Democratic Unionists from Ulster, whose leader met the new Irish Prime Minister in Dublin today, before talks on a Westminster deal resume this weekend.
As you know, the Queen's speech has now been set for next Wednesday. We will continue with those negotiations throughout the weekend and into next week.
And one of the major issues will be Brexit, where the DUP's preference seems less than hard.
We want to see a Brexit that works for everybody, not just in Northern Ireland from my perspective, but of course in the Republic of Ireland as well. So it is about a sensible Brexit. I know people want to talk about soft Brexit, hard Brexit, all of these sorts of things. But what we want to see is a sensible Brexit and one that works for everybody.
Britain's Brexit talks formally start in Brussels at 10 o'clock on Monday morning.
You're going to visit the Kensington residence, Prime Minister.
Yet what would once have been one of the biggest political stories of the year may now be overshadowed by this unfolding tragedy.
Well, Michael joins me now. Michael, do you think this criticism of Theresa May has been fair?
Well, I think we are in a situation increasingly where she's criticised if she does and criticised if she doesn't, at a time when there's a lot of discussion about her legitimacy as Prime Minister, and there are those, of course, particularly on the left, who'd like to force her from office and force another general election. Now, Downing Street's position is, on terms of what Mrs May has done this week, that the consideration has been not to distract the emergency services from their hugely important work, and particularly the police. Now, she's been compared with other politicians, but we saw yesterday how the Labour Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, when he went to Kensington, had to go with a big phalanx of policemen amongst a very angry crowd of residents, understandably angry, but even then somebody threw a bottle at him. And the consideration is, say tonight, if she'd come out of that hall and instead of getting into her car had gone to address the crowd, goodness knows what might have happened. And remember, of course, that we are in a situation where this city has suffered 3 terrorist attacks in the last 3 months. So it is not an easy time at all right now with the DUP problem and Brexit to be Prime Minister.
Michael, thanks very much.
It was exactly a week ago tonight that Kensington Town Hall was recounting one of the tightest fought battles of the general election. A seat that overturned a huge Conservative majority to go Labour by just 20 votes. Today, it became the centre of protest as locals and residents of the Grenfell Tower fire descended upon it to scream their anger, demanding justice, information and answers from both government and the media. Arrangements for survivors and evacuees in the borough has been shambolic, powered by volunteers with little coordination from authorities. Tonight, as more protests spread to the centre of London, it felt like a bottle had been uncorked. The heat of early summer, the anger of grief, a potentially toxic combination for a government so fragile in its grip on power. John Sweeney has been in the thick of it all day and joins us now. What's the mood like where you are, John?
Well, Emily, the situation here, it's tense. I just walked past a candlelit vigil lots of people standing outside the church holding candles to the dead. But at the same time, there are shouts, there's a frenzy, there's a police helicopter up in the sky. It's very, very hard to convey just how angry people were. I went on this march earlier today from Kensington Town Hall to the Tower, and there were times when you could almost feel the anger overflow. This feels, I may be wrong about this, but this feels toxic for the government of Theresa May. It feels as though there's a vacuum with this situation, and what happens when a vacuum is created is that nothing, that people fill in, and it's dark, no question.
Feeling on the march you described earlier, John, do you think that's dissipated now?
No, I feel, I don't want to be overly pessimistic, but I cannot see this ending well. A simple problem is nobody knows how many people have died. I was speaking to somebody who's close to a firefighter, and they were worrying, but actually there could be refugee families from places like Somalia with lots and lots of people in their family. And so the numbers we're talking about, possibly 70 dead, maybe 100 dead, maybe more than that, no one knows. And while this uncertainty happens, and there are all sorts of sensible and good reasons for the authorities to be cautious and go step by step, they've got to get the forensics right, something that's going to be very difficult. But it's fueling anger. It feels as though nothing is being done, and certainly Theresa May didn't help. And I've heard this again and again, that there's difficulty. Right now, maybe you can hear people shouting at us. The BBC is not popular. But today, this evening, I walked with the marchers from Kensington Town Hall. This is my report.
Tonight, those who were grieving for the dead of the Grenfell fire took to the streets of London's richest borough.
We outnumber the Conservative voters in this area 2 to 1. 2 to 1. Why don't we turn up? Why don't we?
The election result here in Kensington was more finely balanced than that, but the passion is real and raw.
So High Street Ken Tube's over there, and we've just turned off Kensington High Street, and we're now on Kensington Church Street. The idea that there would be a big demo, a big angry demo in this part of London a couple of weeks ago, it's extraordinary.
As the march turned north towards the Tower, the numbers grew.
The kids go to all of the schools around here, Holland Park.
And so did the anger. Also on the march, this man, who lives in a tower block in South London and fears what happened to the people of Grenfell Tower might happen to him.
And they put new cladding on our block, and we've been unable to find out in the last 3 days if that cladding is safe in our block. People aren't sleeping at night. I've had about 8 hours sleep the last few nights. There's children not sleeping. It's an absolute disgrace.
Motorists hooted their support. Tourists and shoppers looked on, stupefied. These Met vans used their sirens. But for the Main, the police presence was very low-key.
So the Tower in the background, the crowd is still pouring fast. And it's hard to express just how angry these people are. There's a real anger. Politics has left Parliament and gone on the streets.
As light faded, passion seemed to ease, but London's dark monument remains.
John Sweeney, well, that's how the day ended, but how did we reach this point? The government was keen to get on the front foot early this morning. Sajid Javid, the Community Secretary, promised nothing would be spared in an attempt to get those affected back on their feet. So did it go to plan? Here's David Grossman.
This was the picture that did for George Bush's reputation, flying over the devastation of Hurricane Katrina, avoiding the victims and, it seemed, their plight. Is this the picture that's had a similar impact for Theresa May? Yesterday, meeting not survivors, not the bereaved or the anxious, but the emergency services. Security concerns, we were told.
The flames were just
The fact that today the Queen managed a visit only served to put more pressure on Mrs May. Her Majesty, though, is not the focus of widespread anger right now.
We want answers, that's all we want, answers and justice.
Rightly or wrongly, Theresa May has become just that. Theresa May is joined in the dock of local opinion by Kensington and Chelsea Council.
I think the anger is growing, and I think we have a right to be angry. I think as Londoners we need to come out and say that this is not acceptable. Enough is enough. We need to be angry. There's no reason not to be angry. As the lady said, children have died, families have died.
A protest this afternoon included people storming through the town hall reception and a standoff on the stairs.
What you get here is a strong sense of anger, not simply about what happened in Grenfell Tower, although that is obviously the focus of today's demonstration. It's more about power relationships, who's in charge, and how they treat people who are dependent on them for their lives and their livelihoods.
What we heard today time and time again is that the authorities aren't being honest, that they're holding information back, that they're trying even to minimise the official death toll.
Nearly 100 person missing. People don't know. A lot of people keep asking each other, did you see that person? Did you meet him? Have you heard about him? People are lost, you know what I mean? But they don't know if they are in the hospitals or they are dead or if they are in the building.
The Prime Minister today attempted to answer her critics with a visit to Chelsea and Westminster Hospital to meet survivors. Strong and stable leadership, or just stable door locking? Because when that wasn't enough to satisfy her critics, the Prime Minister's team organised another visit this afternoon to a church near the Tower, now a centre for the relief effort. But this too did little to calm the anger.
And then you're going to come down after people have forced your clerk to be here, forced there, dragged there by your pearls to us, and then you're going to hide behind that red door. Oh, no.
Why go to the same place Jeremy Corbyn went 24 hours before? Because it's all the publicity is done, and papers like the Telegraph and Daily Mail who supported her are going to show that she has some type of heart and soul, when she really doesn't. It's cold like a fish. It's just ridiculous. And at the end of the day, if you care, show you care. It's very disheartening to the community to not see, where's the housing minister? Where's the Home Secretary? You know, things that happen in Manchester, it's so sad. We need to hear you talk. This is awful. I'm not trying to blame anyone, a lot of people are. I'm just saying, show your care, be around here. Because what's happening is the council haven't shown anything. Where are they? You know, and again, we are going to talk about things that happened and what's going to happen in terms of, let's make sure this doesn't happen again. But it's happened now.
The Prime Minister's departure from the church was chaotic and angry. Shouts of murderers and coward. At one point, her car's escape was blocked. The police had to surround it to keep back the crowd. The way was cleared just in time. She may have managed to leave the area, but neither she, nor the government, nor the council are clear of the controversy surrounding this disaster.
David Grossman there.